What's up, everybody? Episode number 45. Oh, we're getting closer to 50. We're getting close. We're getting to a good mark here. Welcome back to the Big Five Podcast, everybody. I am your co-host, Kyle Morello, and next to me, obviously, I just mentioned him, Jay Copestick. How we doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well. I was at the Phils game yesterday. They won. They won today in a walk-off. The Sixers won last night. They're on the doorstep of the conference finals, potentially for the first time since the year they went to the finals in 2001 with Iverson. So, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. And
Yeah,
still a lot to talk about in college basketball. I thought, we sleep in May. Not really.
we never
Not
sleep.
really. Still got plenty to talk about.
Never sleep. Dollar Dog Night on Tuesday night for the Phils.
Yes, sir. Had five. Probably
Good.
would have put down more, but it's a madhouse. Paying the
I
pitch
get it.
clock's the thing. Gives me another hour to eat hot dogs in the
I
stadium.
know. I know. Listen, it's good for viewership at home. Not as good for the in-stadium experience, but at least at least you're not bringing any dollar dogs home. I mean, it's not necessary. So,
Well, I did.
uh,
I gave him those.
no, okay.
For all went to him
Um,
yesterday.
we'll joke between our friends, but anyway, yeah. Knicks. We're recording this on Wednesday night. Just wrapped up a game 5 victory. Made me nervous as hell. Julius Randle had an effort play to close it, and never thought I'd see the day. But nonetheless, we're here. Mets aren't doing well, but we're not going to talk about them anyway. Yes, Cope, we do have, even though Hunter Dickinson's committed, we've talked about some of the big fish in the sea here in the transfer portal, but there's still some names popping up that are making commitments and still some other recruits happening, some scheduling. So we're going to talk about all of it right now. So let's get right into it. First and foremost, we mentioned him on the last episode. Georgetown transfer Jordan Riley has officially made his decision, and he is going to North Broad to join the Temple Owls. Like I said, we talked about him last time, but spent 2 years at Georgetown, offered by Temple coming out of high school. Not so great in the stat department for Georgetown. He didn't play a ton. Started 9 games for them last year. Appeared in 25. So he played, but he wasn't like an insanely insane contributor for them. But I do think he can be that for Temple, especially, as we talked about last episode, a team that is just deprived of talent right now, with so many people leaving for the transfer portal this year. So, Cope, what can you tell me about this Jordan Riley commitment for the Owls?
So this guy's a big time athlete. I mean, what they're lacking right now in the athleticism department, I mean, and he's gonna help them improve that for sure. I mean, this guy is strong. He's ripped. I mean, he can get up there and finish some really difficult shots. I mean, this guy's got bounce with some of the best of them. So they're getting a big time athlete here who can slash. And if you want to spread the floor a lot, you got a guy like Jordan Riley who can cut, who can potentially punch on somebody's head, who can finish at the rim. So it gives them a different type of guy here. Although he doesn't have 3 point numbers you're looking for, something he's gonna. I mean, look, he's gonna have to work on that. You're gonna have to put. You're gonna put him up in Adam Fisher's offense, but gives him a slasher. Even though he's not overly, huge. This isn't a 6'8", 6'9" guy. Uh, Still a guy that can kind of get downhill and use his athleticism to finish over guys. So he's going to give them a different type of wing who, although doesn't shoot the ball that well, can still contribute in some other areas as well. So, and hopefully he's going to play a little bit more than he did at Georgetown. Obviously, they had a really bad year, but he didn't even play in every game there. And I would imagine that with the roster that Temple's going to have, they're probably going to be playing a lot of guys. He's going to get some playing time. So gives him an athlete on the wing, a guy who can slash a little bit and can take advantage of the space that Adam Fisher's hoping to create an offense.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, he's not the best 3-point shooter in the world, but with Adam Fisher's offense, there will be that space in the paint to potentially have someone be a slasher. And he'll be able to use his athleticism well, be able to get to the rim. And hopefully use that athleticism on defense too. I definitely think it's something that they need. Obviously, they're bringing in a lot of shooters and whatnot. They definitely could use someone like him who's just an athlete. So good job on Temple. Like I mentioned last episode, getting in those high major transfers, coming down a little bit. It's never a bad thing. They just need talent on North Broad. So good on Adam Fisher. Good get. Now, Temple also hosting 2 other transfers on campus soon. I don't have exact dates for all of them. We got DeMar Langford and Steve Settle III. So we're going to go over them real quick. DeMar Langford, Boston College transfer, started 15 games last year, appeared in 23, averaged around 7 and 3. Started almost every game in the season before, 30 of 32, and averaged 11 points, almost 5 rebounds, and over a steal. not a great 3-point shooter, just like Jordan Miller. But Steve Settle, this is really interesting too. We talked about Temple needing to get big guys. This is a big guy, 6'10", 180, maybe a little skinny on his frame, but a big body and a 6'10" player. Went to DeMatha. It was announced Tuesday that 2 front runners were Temple and George Washington. So either he'll be going to the American with Temple, or he'll be facing LaSalle and St. Joe's in the A10 with George Washington. Now, Cope, I think we've talked about DeMar Langford on this podcast before. We have not talked about Steve Settle, though, so I want to start with him. What could he bring to the Owls that maybe they don't have right now?
So look, if you want to play 5 out, you want to space the floor, and you want to have shooters, well, guess what? Here's a 6'10" guy who's got a nice 3-point stroke right here. He shot 35% from 3, not this past season, but the season before, only about 30% this year, but he can still knock it down and be a reliable floor spacer for you. So a guy that can spread the floor. He can also attack the basket too. I mean, he's a big forward that can put the ball on the deck and can also create a little bit and can be a mismatch for a traditional center that's got a guard away from the basket. So in terms of Adam Fisher and the way that he wants to play, I think Steve Settle is actually a pretty damn good fit. I actually like his game. I think he's a nice player. So a big stretch forward, I think, is what this team needs. He said in his Adam Fisher said in his press conference about Emmanuel Okpoma, like, get in the gym, start shooting threes because you're going to. But I don't know if off the bat you want Emmanuel Okpoma jacking him up there. Steve Settle's a guy I'd be more comfortable with on the floor, shooting threes for sure. So I think he's a really good fit. Gives him a big versatile forward, and that's the thing. It's all about versatility in Adam Fisher's scheme here. You look at the last 2 teams he was a part of in Miami and Penn State. They had to play small. They played with a lot of versatile guys. There's a guy that's going to do that for you. A big forward, like I said, can shoot it, can put the ball on the deck as well. It's going to be a mismatch nightmare, so to speak, against traditional centers that don't have the foot speed to defend on the perimeter. So I like his game. I'm hoping he commits to Temple. I think the only thing they don't have working for him right now is that, you know, he's a guy who's from Maryland, and GW's after him. So and he played, you know, obviously played at DeMatha too. So it wouldn't shock me to see him stay in the DMV. But if Steve Settle and if he can get up here to Temple, I think he'll actually be a really nice player for Adam Fisher with his ability to shoot the ball and be a big stretch forward.
And that's got to be something that's attractive to him too. I mean, he likes shooting threes. I mean, he's not bad at it. So I could definitely see that happening. The DMV factor definitely will play a part, I think. But we'll see. I mean, George Washington just, they're okay. They had a decent season last year. Not saying the Temple's great or anything. Obviously, they had their struggles and whatnot, but I definitely think he would be a really, really great fit for the Owls. So we'll see what happens. But between these two, we talked about DeMar Langford before too. Between these two, not saying that they're going to have to choose between one or the other. I mean, the hope is that they get both, obviously. But if you had to choose one of these recruits, Cope, which one would it be? These transfers, rather, sorry.
For me, it would be Steve Settle. I really like his game. They need some size, and guess what? You can get a guy who's 6'10" and can shoot as well. I think that's exactly what Adam Fisher's looking for. Because even if you play an Emmanuel Okpoma a lot, it gives you it gives you a different dimension, and it allows you to get some different looks on the floor, especially offensively. If you can put a guy in like Steve Settle, who's got a lot more in his arsenal on offense, can shoot it, can put it on the floor a little bit as a big guy who can actually handle the ball, not as a point guard, obviously, but at least can attack, close out, and can go in straight lines to the basket. So for me, I think Steve Settle would be a huge get. Not only spacing the floor, but again, you can play with a traditional center like Emmanuel Okpoma, or if they bring in somebody else. Obviously, you mentioned last episode, Chris Clark today. We haven't forgot about bigs. Still trying to work on getting them in. But if you can play with a traditional 5, but you can also play with Steve Settle, who can stretch the floor as well. So for me, I'm zeroing in kind of here on Steve Settle to see if Adam Fisher and his staff can get him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously, like I just said, both would be good, but I think it just adds a different element to the offense. And we talked about Adam Fisher's upcoming system a bunch, where they're going to want to shoot a lot of threes. So I think he fits that, and hopefully he chooses us over George Washington. That would be ideal. All right, moving on from the Owls now. We're gonna go over to Nova. So this is a little interesting. They obviously, as we all know, just lost out on. I got a fly in here, my fault. Just lost out on Hunter Dickinson to Kansas. Well, now Kansas is losing a player, ZUBY EJIOFOR, the center, and he is being hosted by Villanova. So could be a potential little not swap because obviously he didn't come from Michigan, but could be Kansas's loss and Villanova's gain here. Now EJIOFOR was ranked 80th in the country when he committed to Kansas. He's from Garland, Texas, 6'9", 240. Was in 25 games for Kansas last year. Didn't play much though, 5 minutes a game. So could be something. I mean, we talked about Eric Dixon needing a backup center. I think he would play perfectly into that. He's also not. I mean, it's not the same as Eric Dixon. Obviously, there's not many people like Eric Dixon, but he's not like he's a really, really tall center, like someone who's Hunter Dickinson. He's 6'9". I mean, it's a little bit of an undersized center for at least NBA purposes, I guess. For college, I think it's just about fine. But what can you tell me about EJIOFOR and how he could potentially, impact Villanova's roster, and if you'll see him on Villanova's roster?
So the first thing is, like, Nova staff hasn't been shy about, hey, we need a real five. Not that Eric Dixon can't play that, but you need some beef up front. You need some size up front. And in a conference like this with 6'7" Eric Dixon being your center, like, there's just teams like, look at UConn last year, Sanogo, Klingon. Hard to defend those guys. Hard to compete with them. So they've reached out to Naeem McLeod. They have ZUBY EJIOFOR here. I think he would fit in well. Look, you just need a traditional 5-man, a guy who's going to be a lob threat in the pick and roll. He's a really, really big, strong guy. I mean, he's not going to give up much ground in the paint. In a small dose, can defend on the perimeter for a little bit. Probably not what you want. But look, rebounding, a big body on defense, a pick and roll lob threat. That's really what they need here. It's not really a complicated role here and a complicated fit. They just need a real center. They haven't been shy about that. And I think ZUBY EJIOFOR would fit that bill. And he was buried last year on Kansas's depth chart because not only was he behind Zach Clemens, who transferred, not only was he behind Ernest Udeh, but he was behind KJ Adams and a Kansas team that actually played small a lot of the time. And with KJ Adams, they had a guy who could switch. He was strong. He was athletic. He was quick. He could make decisions in the short roll when people double team the DeJuan Harris or double team the ball handler. So it's crazy how he was buried behind KJ Adams, who had 3 centers behind him, and he was not a traditional center. But I think if you unlock this guy, you give him some more playing time. I mean, he's going to need some time. Even though he's been in college for a year, he didn't play much. But I think this could definitely be a fit here. Highly touted recruit, not for nothing. Just kind of a victim of circumstance, I guess, with who was in front of him. But I think it could be a good fit here. They just need a traditional 5. Nova's doing a good job, and they're being aggressive and trying to get one. I think ZUBY EJIOFOR could be a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line. They literally just need another center. Like, you can't just rely on 6'7" Eric Dixon to do the job. And he does a damn good job. Like, this is not a disservice to Eric Dixon whatsoever. He plays a small ball 5 better than maybe anyone in the country. It's just the reality that they need size. Donovan Klingon's not going anywhere. Sanogo's going to the NBA, but Klingon's not going anywhere, and he's even bigger than Sanogo was. So, they just need size, and then this could definitely be someone to provide them that extra size off the bench, that extra muscle. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep you updated, obviously, if we hear if his visit went well, if he's got offered and whatnot. But definitely something to keep an eye on. Keep an eye out on for Villanova. English is hard sometimes, as we know. All right, moving on. Some St. Joe's scheduling news. First and foremost, they're going to be playing Iona this coming season. Unfortunately, no Rick Pitino there, but Tobin Anderson taking over for him. They'll be playing a neutral site game at UBS Arena, which is on Long Island. It's where the minor league hockey team known as the Islanders play. I had to get that job in there. I'm a Rangers fan. We don't need to talk about it, but it's about 20 miles from Iona, about 120 from St. Joe's. So obviously a little bit further for them. It's more of an Iona home game, but it's definitely not far for St. Joe's. Now Iona does have some Philly ties. They signed Newman Grady, big man. So how the hell do you say that last name, Cope? That just tripped me up for a
Adewale.
second.
Sultan Adewale. Kind of hard to
Adewale.
hear in the. You definitely heard his name heard in the palestra, but
I
you know
did.
you can't hear the
I
sound. So
did.
sorry.
And I've definitely heard his name before, and I just looked at it for a second and I went, huh? Sultan Adewale. Just signed him this weekend. And it's also been rumored that LaSalle and Iona have agreed to play a home and home series, though nothing's official. So we will obviously keep you updated on that. And then the second thing is that they are playing at Rupp Arena for a multi-team event. So Kentucky's going to host a few teams, Stonehill being one of those teams, as well as St. Joe's. Central Michigan was reported to be a part of this event. They were scratched, and we do not know a fourth team yet. This is all according to Rocco Miller. So Kentucky will have 3 home games. St. Joe's will likely have a home and away. We don't know the dates yet, but some interesting scheduling notes. It seems like they're trying to beef up their scheduling a little bit, at least for a non-conference. I mean, we're not talking about any slouches here. So what do you make of St. Joe's scheduling some interesting non-conference games?
So first, I just want to start in our last section. Read my numbers wrong. Eric Dixon's listed at 6'8". I think that kind of depends where
Okay.
you look. But regardless, I don't
Still a
want to
small ball center.
don't want to short him the inch. But regardless, St. Joe's. I thought at Milfartelli on Twitter brought up a pretty good point here. Shout out to Milfartelli. Kind of odd to play a neutral site game that's significantly farther away from you than your lower conference opponent, and also
Neutral site.
yeah, you're not gonna get like the Ken Pom score. He brought up it's not gonna be weighted as much as being like a true away game. So I don't know. I don't hate the opponent because I think Iona's still going to be very good, and Tobin Anderson's putting together a pretty damn good team in the MAC. I think we'll still compete for a title there. But just I guess weird to me they have to go that far for it. As far as the LaSalle thing goes, it was actually reported by Rocco Miller that there was gonna be a home and home series between LaSalle and Iona, and then apparently there was a snag at the last minute, fell apart. Not gonna happen. I think it would have actually been a pretty quality opponent for LaSalle,
Yeah.
especially when you can get a home and home and you can go play them. Thought it would have been nice. So shame that that's not happening, but we will get to LaSalle also scheduling in a minute. Yeah, this is interesting. I've seen a lot of teams do this. I just saw the Arizona uh, has a multi-team event that they're going to be hosting at their place as well. The Grand Canyon is going to be a part of among some other teams. So this is it's different. I haven't seen this in years past, but you're going to have like your Duke, your Arizona, your Kentucky host all 3 of these or host 3 teams, and then the other teams that are part of this event are going to get some home and homes. So last year, St. Joe's played Fairleigh Dickinson. Unfortunately, it did not go well for them. But they have another NEC opponent here in Stonehill who they will be playing, and they actually had a pretty solid year last year in the NEC. So that should be another good challenge for them. We'll see if we'll update you if there's a 4th team that's a part of this. But I like the St. Joe's doing this. Kentucky's probably giving them a little bit of money. You get to go to Rupp Arena, potentially get a signature hallmark win on your resume if you're able to do it. And St. Joe's are going to be young, but I think they're going to have a pretty damn good team, and they can maybe go in there, maybe be competitive. Maybe we'll see how the season starts out for them. But I like that they're doing this. Like I said, you get paid a little bit, you get a hell of an opportunity to get a damn good win on your resume. So in a league in the A10 that we've seen in years past, not last year, but in years past, could be a multi-bid league. So I actually like this, like the format in general too, but I definitely like that St. Joe's being a part of this, much like LaSalle we're about to talk about.
Yes, yes, I want to get to them in a second, but yeah, I mean, I think this is great for St. Joe's. The Iona thing, yeah, it's a little weird that it's a neutral site game, but it's on Long Island, and it's definitely a lot closer to Iona. But they'll figure that out. Hopefully, they just win that game, and it doesn't matter. But for the multi-team event, like yeah, it's really interesting. I hadn't really heard a lot about these multi-team events until I don't know the last couple of years or so, but they're very, very interesting. I wonder who that fourth team will be. I think that'll definitely help see who, kind of shape this little multi-team event here. But yeah, I mean, they definitely have the horses to maybe pull off that giant upset. We'll see what happens. It'll be really interesting. But moving on now to the other multi-team event that we're going to talk about with the Explorers. Now, we did mention this one before, but it's been official, released by Duke. The Blue Devil Challenge at Cameron Indoor Stadium, multi-team event featuring LaSalle, Southern Indiana, and Bucknell. So we do have some dates and some who's playing who and whatnot. So LaSalle is hosting Bucknell on Tuesday, November 14th. They are also hosting Southern Indiana on Friday, November 17th. And then they're playing Duke on November 21st. So that is the schedule for that. And listen, just like we talked about with St. Joe's, even more so, I think, with LaSalle, just because we don't expect them to be as good, I think, as Joe's will be this year. But this has a chance to be a massive upset playing at Duke. And, obviously Kentucky is really, really good too for the St. Joe's thing. But I think a lot of people have Duke probably in their top 3 consensus coming into the season. You're a Duke fan. You went to LaSalle. We talk about LaSalle all the time on here. What expectation? I think you probably expect Duke to win, but can you tell me the magnitude of this matchup taking place?
Yeah, for LaSalle, this is absolutely freaking huge. This has to be what if they win there. That's legitimately one of the best wins in the history of the program. I don't think Duke's done building here. I think they're still going to be. They still could add another big, but regardless, you could have for the first time that I can remember, 4 starters come back potentially. Tyrese Proctor's back. Jeremy Roach can come back. Mark Mitchell's back. Kyle Filipowski's back. They're bringing in 4 or 5-star recruits. This team's gonna be loaded next year. They're for sure. I think right now, you have to say they're going into the preseason strictly on paper. They're number 1 right now.
I'd say them in Kansas. Them in Kansas.
Them in Kansas. Depending on who comes back to UConn, I guess you could say maybe them. But regardless, they have a chance to go in there. It's gonna be a great experience for them nonetheless to be able to go. Probably, there's gonna be a national TV game. To go into Duke, play Cameron on national TV, it's going to be a great experience for these guys. But if they can pull off an upset, legitimately will be one of the best wins in the history of their program. That's not taking anything away from LaSalle saying they're bad, but to go in there when you're getting paid to, that's absolutely huge right there if you can go pick up a win. But what I want to talk about here is they will be hosting Bucknell, and the whole time once we found out this was a thing, we hoped that this would be the case because we wanted to see John Griffin come back and coach in the Big 5. So pretty cool that we're going to see that. I know John Griffin on Twitter was excited and was tweeting about how he was excited to go to Tom Gola Arena, coach, against the Big 5 team and against Fran Dunphy. So that'll be something to watch out for. And then they're going to host Southern Indiana as well. Probably a bye game where it's going the opposite way. And LaSalle's playing Southern Indiana to get there. They were new to D1 last year. They need money to kind of keep themselves afloat. And I bet they'll be playing a lot of other bye games here. It's similar to when LaSalle hosted Queens College last year. The Royals, who I was pretty big on before the starting big man Gavin Raines got hurt. So they get a good game against Bucknell, a bye game against Southern Indiana, and then they will be getting I'm sure what is a pretty penny from Duke to go down there and play them. But it's a very good non-conference game for them. Obviously, one of the best that anybody can play. Going to Cameron against a team that will probably be ranked in the top 5, I would imagine, by the time this game happens. So, going to be a great experience for LaSalle. Happy that they're able to play Bucknell and John Griffin as well. I don't know how much of Bucknell moves the needle for them. Obviously, the Duke game is the big one here, but nice to see them kind of fill out their non-conference schedule. And a familiar face will be coming back to Tom Gola Arena, John Griffin.
Yeah, and you'll have to see it. It's always great when you can have people leave the Big 5 but still come back and either coach against or play against or whatever it may be against Big 5 teams. It's great. You'll have to see it. Great respect for John Griffin III. And that should be a very, very interesting event. Very excited for that one. Speaking of the Explorers, though, we talked about this guy in our last episode. TUNDE FASASI, the Swedish prospect, has committed to the Explorers. They actually got a commitment. How about this? This is awesome. First one in the offseason. Also had offers from Jacksonville, UIC, Montana State, and UC Santa Barbara, along with George Mason, Utah State, and Creighton, among others. 6'8" forward. He goes to the Hosek School in New York. We talked about him last time, so maybe don't need to get in depth, but Talk to me once again, Cope, about just his potential prospect playing as a big in Fran Dunphy's system, and going up with Rokas Josic to kind of fill out those big men spots.
Well, the biggest thing about him is he's a big forward. He's not a back to the basket center, even though Rokas is more than that in his bag. This is a big versatile forward that they didn't have last year. They didn't really have a wing that could put the ball on the floor, create a little bit for others, create their own shot, and do a bunch of different things. So what I mentioned in our last episode is he's going to give them a little bit of versatility that they badly needed last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You have guys like Drum Mays last year that could switch, that could bang down low, could kind of be some small ball players for you. But offensively, they really needed a guy like this who can bring a lot of different things to the table. He can shoot the three. He can create for others. He can be a big ball handler sometimes when you need him to be. So I really like what Tunde brings here, and he's going to bring LaSalle and Fran Dunphy a versatility element at the forward spot that unfortunately they didn't have last year. Because besides Jameer Brickus, besides Khalil Brantley, besides Namwar Gill when he got in the game, they really didn't have too many guys to create on the ball for them. Tunde could be a guy that could take a little bit of pressure off of Brantley and Brickus. So excited to see him hit the floor. I think he'll be will he help right away? I think they're going to need him to, but down the line, I think this could be a damn good prospect for the Explorers and a big time player for him.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned with the not being a back to the basket big man, but having the size to create mismatches, I think is huge. Because you just, especially in college basketball, you just don't get that often. You see the NBA, like how the NBA values wings and whatnot. And in the NBA, he would be a wing, he'd be a taller wing, but like this what he would be just because, his ability to face the basket and shoot and whatnot. But to have someone like that in college, especially in the A10, is definitely big. So I can definitely see him being a great player for them. Maybe not exactly right away. I do think he'll contribute next year, but not be like, their best player or anything. But I definitely think down the road he can definitely be a great player for them. And I'm really excited to see it. It's exciting to see LaSalle get players who have a pretty high floor or a high ceiling rather. So I'm very excited to see what Tunde will bring to the Explorers. All right, a couple of Villanova notes to close out our silly little episode here. Back to the recruiting world for them. They're in the Final Four for Archbishop Ryan's Thomas Sorber. A little bit about him. He's a big fella, 6'9", 250, class of 2024. And he's got some suitors, some serious ones. Obviously, Villanova being one of them, but Miami, Georgetown, and Providence are the other three in his Final Four. What can you tell me about Mr. Sorber? Excuse me, do you like Villanova's chances of getting him, and what could he provide in 2024-25 for the Wildcats if he chooses?
Yeah, I do like his game, and again, this is the Villanova staff saying, "Hey, we need size. We can't play small like we have the last 2 years." Not that look, they made a Final Four there at Dixon's Center. Not taking anything away from that, but they realize that they're gonna have to play with some size here and some traditional centers. Thomas Sorber's that guy. I mean, 6'9", 250, and he's still got a year to go in high school. Like this is a
Big
this is
fella.
a big fella right here. He's gonna power through you on the block. Who's gonna finish down low? Who's gonna rebound well? Exactly what they need. And we always talk about keeping the best guys in Philadelphia home. Well, guess what? If you need a center Villanova, you got a damn good one that's not too far from you in Thomas Sorber. So I like their chances. Although he's down to, Miami, done a good job with Philly guys and some other Big East schools. I like their chances. Shout out to Tommy Godin from Road to the Garden. He had a tweet that was where he quoted Thomas Sorber, and he was basically talking about how he was a fan of Villanova growing up, even before the Chris Jenkins shot. So I think that makes their chances better as well. A local guy who's been a fan of the program, really good player in the Catholic League. He's got a lot of eyes on him. Villanova's probably been recruiting him for a while. So I like their chances at Thomas Sorber. And like I said, you want to keep the best home, you got an opportunity to do that, and you have an opportunity to fill a big need with a big guy. Because especially if Eric Dixon plays this year and then he wants to play next year and use up a fifth year, well, he's almost out of eligibility. You're going to need to replenish that at some point. So a local guy who can fill a need for you, I think Thomas Sorber is an awesome fit, and he's going to continue to dominate at Archbishop Ryan next year. And hopefully we will see him back in the flesh. I know Ryan They didn't make the championship game this year, but I know they did the year before. We got to see him a little bit, but hopefully he can be back at the flesh playing for a PCL championship when we can see him. And hopefully at that point he will be a Villanova. He'll be a Villanova commit. But he said he wants to wait until beginning of this upcoming school year, so around August or September, to make an announcement. So we still have some time. We'll update you when we hear something. But we hope this for the Wildcats, and he decides to stay in Philadelphia.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Eric Dixon will need replacing at some point, even though it seems like he can stay around forever. He actually can't, unfortunately. I think this would be a great guy to do it. Just, local guy staying here. While you were talking about him, though, I just realized something. You mentioned that he said he was a Villanova fan before even the Chris Jenkins shot. Does it make you feel really, really old that somebody would mention, oh, I was a fan even before 2016? That, you look up and it's 6.5 years ago, 7 years ago at this point.
Crazy, man. Crazy how
Like,
time
I was his age when that shot happened. I was a junior in high school.
Yeah, right. It's so.
And you were a sophomore in high school. That just gave me a
Remember
moment for a
exactly where
second.
you were.
I
Yeah.
do. I do.
Yeah.
I was laying in my bed rooting for UNC because I picked them in my bracket. And also I like UNC growing up too. But
Yeah. And if you want to feel even older, I tweeted out a couple weeks ago. John Gallagher at Manhattan offered. Get this. He offered Anquan Bolden Jr.
I saw that.
to a basketball scholarship. So if you want to feel old, and I saw that Anquan Bolden Jr. got a couple more offers too. So if you want to feel old, that'll do the trick for you.
It's just a lot of that going on right now. Like Drew Jones and Jackson Holliday were both picks in last year's MLB draft. That's Matt Holliday's son and Andrew Jones's son. Obviously Fernando Tatis Jr. is, my age and is in, a star in MLB, but golly, this is insane. That just made me feel really, really old for a second hearing that. I've been a fan since before the Chris Jenkins shot. Like, wow, that's. Anyway, we're gonna have one more Villanova news for you real quick. Ashley Howard, we mentioned him looking like he's gonna get an assistant coach role for Villanova, and it is official. He did get that head coaching role. So first of all, shout out to Ashley Howard. Congratulations and welcome back to the Big Five. We missed you. Cope, what can you tell me about his role with Villanova and what this means for the Wildcats?
Yeah, so look, when we talked about him, I want to say it was about a month ago. This kind of been, I feel like we kind of knew this was going to happen. It just happened. Like now, it's official. Was on both championship teams. Had his stint at LaSalle, and I guess took his lumps there. But like I said, the guy cared. I mean, I went to a couple games, and that guy wasn't for lack of trying. It's tough job, but really good recruiter. Recruited Colin Gillespie. Was on both championship teams. Makes his money. Like he's known for being such a great recruiter. And that's what he's going to continue to do. So I believe he's actually been a part of some of these transfer commitments as well. So he's been doing his thing behind the scenes. But to get a guy who's been at Villanova for a while, has a proven track record there, and has been a part of some of the most successful teams in the program's history, really, really good hire, in my opinion. And, I'm telling you, Nova staff is only going to be better because of this. And then you look at their staff now. It's Kyle Neptune, Ashley Howard, Dwayne Anderson, Mike Nardi, all guys that have been there for a while, that played there. So you know what Villanova like to do. You know what Philly hoops are about. They keep it in the family. You're just seeing another example of it here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we always talk about, especially when we're talking about like the Temple head coaching search, like wanted to try to get someone who understands Philly basketball. Like that's the thing with every school in the Big Five is that you want to keep ties in Philly. You want to keep people in Philly. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen with the players, but with the coaching staffs, it does happen a lot. So you seeing that again here. Obviously, Ashley Howard has been around. He's been on those Villanova coaching staffs before, so it's good to see him back. And listen, I think he's going to continue to do great things for them. You've already seen it paying off a little bit, even though it was just made official. I think he's kind of been working a little bit behind the scenes since the rumor began that he was going to be back. And talk about the Friends of Villanova collective too, the NIL. He was a part of that too. So good for him. Good for Villanova, and I'm excited to see what he does there in his second stint. All right, one final thing, and this won't be as relevant by the time you all see this, but for us right now on Wednesday night when we're recording this, the transfer portal officially closes Thursday, May 11th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. Which finally, honestly, because it's just been nonstop people going back and forth in and out of the transfer portal. Now, this doesn't mean that like everybody has to make a decision by Thursday, May 11th, 11:59 p.m. It just means that you have to make a decision whether or not you're going to enter your name in. You don't have to decide what school you're going to. You don't have to decide whether to go back to the school that you decided to transfer from. Put your name in the portal. So I'm gonna have a little game for you here. If you had to have one name maybe floating around in your head that you think is gonna enter the transfer portal by the time the deadline happens, about 25 hours from right now of us recording, what name would you pick if you have one?
So I've been seeing some stuff on Twitter because a couple big name guys put their name in today. So Julian Phillips from Tennessee, Arthur Kaluma, who we saw play a bunch in the Big East, he put his name in the transfer portal. Now some of these guys, like even Jordan Dingle, he's in the draft process. Seems like he's very committed to that right now. But if he were to come back to school, he's gonna have a ton of options. A guy I've been hearing is Kobe Brown from Missouri. A guy I've been seeing some rumblings on Twitter, and if that's the case, like basically at the buzzer here, that's a huge guy to enter the portal. Guy, on a Missouri team that made the tournament under Dennis Gates, had a great year, that won a game in Utah State. A guy like Kobe Brown to put up the numbers that he did, I mean, people are going to flock to him, and he's going to have just about every offer of, or he's going to have just about every offer of everybody who's still a spots open at this point, because rosters are getting filled, still space. Some high schoolers aren't committed yet. You still have that to worry about. But I think Kobe Brown for me from Missouri is one that I'm seeing like, hey, that at the death year, that could be an absolutely huge name to enter the portal.
Yeah, that definitely be a really, really big one. I have one, and it's one we talked about already, so like I'm not going to take full credit for it, but I could definitely see Caleb Love going back into the portal. We talked about it last episode or the episode before, whichever one it was, but Hunter Dickinson's not there. I think that was the big draw for him to go there. They're losing a bunch of talent too. Kobe Buffkin's entering the draft.
He said he's committed there.
Did he say that?
He said he's committed there.
Yeah, do you think he's going to be a first round pick if he goes in the draft though?
Who's that? Caleb Love?
No. Oh, I thought you were talking about Kobe Buffkin. My apologies.
Kobe Buffkin, I think he'll get picked.
Yeah,
but
that's what I thought you were talking about first. But
Caleb Love said he's committed there.
Okay.
Even with the Hunter Dickinson news, he said that he's committed there.
Listen, I mean, good for him for sticking to his guns, but like I also would understand if you want to look for something else. And we talked about Indiana being one of those maybe potential suitors because he was up there with Michigan for his services before he committed. Other than that, I don't think I really have any names that I can think of off the top of my head right now. But about 25 hours from now, we're gonna see if we were right. And when this episode releases, we're gonna see who are the final ones entering the transfer portal. And I'm so happy it's closing, to be honest with you. But it has been very, very interesting so far this offseason to see. So we'll see what happens come Friday. All right. Well, that's pretty much all we got here. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
No. Phils, keep it up, and hopefully the Sixers can close it out. Just I'm tired of seeing Boston beat them.
Yeah, and
would love for the Sixers to win tomorrow and do it at home. Like I feel good about the Sixers. Feel very good about the Sixers. I don't want to, I'm knock on wood here while I'm sitting here, but I feel very good about the Sixers. Hopefully they can close it out.
Listen, I don't like either team, so it's kind of a lose-lose for me. But obviously, most of my friends are Sixers fans, so I wouldn't mind seeing you guys be happy. Yeah, I mean, if I had a prediction, I'll be the Debbie Downer and say go 7, and then whatever happens from there happens from there. Obviously, the Sixers have proven they can win in Boston, and the Celtics have proven they can win in Philly too. So that's going to be interesting. And obviously, by the time this releases, we will know the result of Game 6. So this could all be for naught, but be very interesting. But yeah, Knicks, please. I don't want there to. I didn't think there was hope going into this game, and then they had a 19-point lead, and then they almost lost it, but they pulled it out. They're going into Miami, and they just need to win one. They just need to win one to have a Game 7 at home, and you never know what can happen. So I'm praying. I'm not overly hopeful, but I'm praying. And hopefully Quentin Grimes is okay with his little ankle twist. Did strip the ball from Jimmy still though, so it's fine. And hopefully the Mets can continue to turn it around. They picked up a win with Justin Verlander going 7 strong, 1 run. Needed a start like that from a Mets pitcher. It's been since Joey Lucchesi on my birthday, April 21st, when he went 7 against the Giants. But yeah, the sports vibes were immaculate for me about 2.5 weeks ago, and now they're just clinging on by a thread. With the Rangers obviously being in that too. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But regardless, thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, we very much appreciate it. A lot of transfer news, a lot of scheduling news, recruiting news. We're gonna keep you updated with all of it, and we're gonna do so on our socials. So make sure you follow us there on Instagram and Twitter at Big5Pod. I started with the socials first this time. Also, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure you listen to our audio-only versions on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And we'll see you next time.